Hi, I'm Dr. Janine, and today we are going to make einkorn bread. Easy einkorn bread, I will say, because it's very easy to make. Takes a little time, but very, very easy. First thing we're going to do is grind our einkorn. If you grind your own, it preserves a lot of the nutrients because once it's ground, some of the nutrients are degraded. So we're going to grind it fresh. If you don't have a grinder, you can always buy it already ground. And we buy ours from Einkorn.com, and they will grind it right before they ship it to you if that's what you prefer. Now, I tell a lot of people they should be doing a lower carb diet because we run into a lot of people, especially being in the South, that is pre-diabetic and diabetic. And that's one thing we have a hard time doing is making people stop eating bread. We don't do a lot of it, but if I do it, I am going to eat my own. It is so different than the bread you get in the grocery store, and you would see that if you make it yourself. You'll also see it tastes better, and the mold really likes it too. Within 3 days, it's molded. So what are they putting in that stuff in the grocery store that makes it stay on the shelf for 2 months? That's kind of scary. So we try to lower chemicals in food and eat more fresh food. So with einkorn, it is your original wheat, so it has not been messed with. And it actually is naturally way lower in gluten. Can't say it doesn't have any, but it is very, very, very low. So it doesn't get as puffy as regular bread, but it's just as good. It's actually better in my opinion. It has higher fiber because we use the whole grain. You can get einkorn that is actually what they call the white einkorn, but it's been stripped of a lot of what it has in it. That's how they make it white. So I prefer whole grain. If you're gonna do bread, make sure it's whole grain and make sure you make it yourself. Okay, so y'all have seen how easy it is to grind your own grain, especially if you have the right tool and can get a little attachment. Then it's actually easy to do. We do ours really fine. So that way it's pretty fine ground. You can actually do it coarse if you'd like, but I find that the bread does better with finer grind. And if you see most bread flours out there are real fine as well. So for bread, I like it fine. Okay, now we're gonna start the process of actually making the bread. Now that we have the einkorn, I've already measured out 4 1/4 cups of ground einkorn. It is 2 1/4 cups not ground. So when you just have the whole berry, that's how much you would grind, is 2 1/4 cups. Now we got to get our water ready. Water has to be heated so that the yeast can be activated. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is heat my water and then go from there. I actually we have a pot filler, which makes it really easy, but I have reverse osmosis water that comes from this pot filler. So we specifically, when we built our house, we wanted clean water. And it is so important to have clean water. And there are so many contaminants in a lot of the water today that we put this in. So that way when I cook, I have clean water. You're gonna measure a cup and a half. Okay, cup and a half. So I am always just sitting here kind of waiting with my temperature because it does not take very long to get. You want it around 100 degrees, no hotter than 110. Unfortunately, I always get it too hot and I have to wait a minute to cool down before I can put the yeast in it. But it's hard to get that exact temperature. We are already up to 92. It does not take the second to heat up water. Okay, there we go. We're ready. Okay. So I actually take this, pour it in a bowl, 2 tablespoons of honey. This is honey that our bees made in our backyard. Can't get no more local than that, but you always want to get local honey that has not been cut with sugar. So just to get all my honey out of my measuring stick, and I'm just going to stir it. I'm going to get the honey to actually go into solution because real honey is pretty thick. So my honey's really thick. So what I'm doing is I'm stirring it just to get it into solution. And then I'm going to check the temperature. Just cut the package open. I don't ever cut it until right before I use it because yeast is alive and you don't want it to die. So we're just kind of waiting. About 1:05, I usually do it, but it was 1:06, so we're going to give it another minute. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So I'm going to just pour it. And what I do, and I found this works best to activate the yeast, I just pour it on top. I do not stir. And then I set 5 minutes on the timer. And that's when your yeast is ready to go in your einkorn. So what on the einkorn? Now, I already told you we measured out 4 1/4 cups of einkorn. The one thing that has to go in it is my salt. A teaspoon of salt to that. And that's all that's in it. The only ingredients in this bread is einkorn, whole grain einkorn, salt, honey, water, and yeast. That is it. It is that easy. And I just kind of mix it all together. And after that's mixed together, what I do is I go ahead while I'm waiting on the yeast, I grease my bowl so that the bread does not stick to the bottom of the bowl and I can't get it off. So I use a little bit of avocado oil. Just a little bit. It don't take much. And I use paper towel just to kind of, because paper towel takes most of it, but it does just grease your sides up really good. Okay, and now we're just waiting for the 5 minutes for the yeast to activate. We're getting really close to our 5 minutes being up. Now you notice the yeast like puffs up on top of the water. That means it did activate. That means it is where it should be. And the next step, real easy. You take this bowl of water, yeast, and honey, and you just pour it in to the bigger bowl. And then get a silicone spatula, and what we're going to do is just mix it. Now, that is one way einkorn is very, very different, is it does not have to be kneaded the way that other bread does. And the reason is because of the gluten content in there. If you knead it too much, it's just going to make it sticky. So I just mix really well and just get it completely mixed together. And it's going to be like a really thick fat. It's really not the normal type of bread looking solution, but it's right. It doesn't mean it's not right. You see how thick it looks? And that's what we want. And then the next step, that's why I say this bread is so easy to make. It takes a little time just because of the rising, but it doesn't take much to do it. So next, I have my bowl that I put a little bit of avocado oil in, just to keep it from sticking to the bottom. That's all I needed. And I am going to pour this into it. It is ready. I make sure I get all of it in there. I want to get every bit of what I made. Okay, next step, we're just going to take something to make it kind of warmer in the bowl. Okay. And just get it good and tight because it's going to rise. And I put just some sort of towel over the top. And then put a timer for 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes, we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. The rise and in between putting it in the oven. But I like using butter to grease the pan. You can use avocado oil. You can use any type of oil you like. But always use a beneficial fat and always try to use organic. And so on this one, I just rub it. It don't take a lot because I have a stone pan, but I don't want it sticking to the bottom of the oven. So I just take butter and just kind of spread it around. You see, it's risen a good bit. It is not going to puff up without the gluten the way other breads do. So that again, all we're going to do this time is we're going to have a wet spatula, keeps it from sticking to the einkorn, and we're going to stir one more time. Just knock it down. You don't even have to stir very much. Just enough to knock the bread down. And once it's knocked down, we are actually going to take this, put it in the pan. I like getting it spread out. As like I said, it's kind of thick. little sticky still. That's normal. And then we're gonna cover it. Again, I kind of keep the same wrap out. So I then can just kind of put it over the top of this. So that would stick to the sides the way it does to metal, but this just keeps it from sticking to my towel, because when it rises, it ain't gonna stick to my towel. It'll stick to the wrap instead. And then cover it up again. And we're gonna wait another 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, it's ready to go in the oven. But now is when we preheat our oven to 375. So we are preheating the oven, so it'll be ready to cook when the time comes. Yep, it is ready. And this is the reason I have this up here, because it kind of stuck to the top. And just take this away. It is ready for the oven now. So we're going to put it in the oven. It is preheated at 375, and we're going to cook for about 25-30 minutes. Again, everybody's stove is different. So you have to kind of go by your stove and how hot it cooks, and you want to watch it, because you don't want to overcook or undercook the bread. And we'll show you when it comes out. Okay, take it out, bring it over here, but I always check it with a fork. I stick the fork in, make sure it comes out clean, and it does. So it's good and crunchy on the top, fork is clean, time for the bread. Now, I'm gonna say anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes. When I used to use a pan that wasn't stone, and when I did that, it didn't take as long to cook. So the stone pan takes a little bit longer, but you always want to check. But I always dump it out on the board. And then flip it back. That way, we'll let it cool for a minute. They always say on bread, you really should let it cool completely before you cut it. But I like hot bread, so I never wait that long. So we're gonna give it a few minutes and cut the bread. It's only been about 5 minutes since we took it out of the oven, but like I say, I never wait as long as they say you should on bread, because I like it hot. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it. If you do wait for it to cool, it will cut a little easier. So it is easier to cut if you wait. But I am eating this today, and I am ready for lunch, so I'm gonna cut it now. Always use a serrated knife, by the way, when you're cutting bread. This is actually a bread knife. You can see it's really good holes. So it is cutting really good, even though I'm cutting hot. If you like this recipe, share it with others, and mark like and subscribe at the bottom, because that way you'll get all the new recipes coming up so that you can cook healthier.